Hey, can I borrow your phone? I'd like this to be spicier. What do you think? Would it be okay if I stayed over this weekend? Hey, how about a hug? Anytime you ask someone if you can do something that involves them, their body, or their boundaries, you're asking for their consent. And pretty much everyone practices consent every day, most of the time without even thinking about it. It's important to practice consent in all aspects of our lives because it helps us be respectful of other people. And there's one area of our lives that it's especially important to practice consent because failing to do so could cause someone a lot of harm. So, when is consent extra important? When it comes to sexual activity. Some of you watching have maybe already learned a bit about consent in the context of sexual activity. And for others of you, this might be the first time that you're thinking about it. For that reason, we're going to start with a little warm-up activity to tap into your existing knowledge and identify some questions that you might have. To do that, we're going to make a KWL chart. Grab yourself a blank piece of paper and let's make one together. To start off, turn your paper horizontally, like this, and divide it into thirds. Now you should have 3 sections on your paper. At the top of the section on the left, write what I know about consent. At the top of the middle section, write what I want to know about consent. And at the top of the third section on the right, put what I learned about consent. Now you're going to take a few minutes and fill out the first 2 sections. While you're filling out the first section, what you already know, you might put things like when people have to consent, what consent looks like, or if there are times when someone can't consent. As you write down what you know, make a note of any pieces of information that are connected or that could be grouped together. Remember, you don't need to guess in this section. It's all about what you already know. And if you don't have much to write here, that's okay. That's what the next section is for. When you fill out the second section, come up with some questions that you might have about consent. Maybe there's things that you wrote in the first column that you want to learn more about. Or maybe you have some big questions you're hoping to get answered in this lesson. You can also add questions to this section as we go along. While we're talking, our conversations might spark some more questions for you as well. You can pause the video here and take 3 to 5 minutes to fill out the first 2 sections in your chart. You can fill it out with a partner or by yourself. Great! Now that you've identified what you know about consent and thought of some questions about it, let's explore what consent looks like in Canada. But wait! Don't put away those KWL charts. Remember, you can add questions to it as we go along, and at the end of the lesson, we're going to use them to summarize what you learned about consent. In Canada, we have really good and comprehensive laws about consent to sexual activity. Consent is a mutual, voluntary, informed, and active agreement between clear-minded, of-age peers to engage in sexual activity made before any and every sexual act. Wow, there is a lot going into that definition of consent. To help us break down the different parts of this definition, we're going to use a graphic organizer to look at each piece individually. The first thing this definition tells us is that consent is a mutual, voluntary, informed, and active agreement. So that first section is helping us understand how it looks when someone agrees to sexual activity. Next, this definition tells us that this agreement is between clear-minded, of-age peers. This section of the definition describes who can consent with whom. Finally, this definition tells us that this agreement happens before any and every sexual act. This part of the definition helps us understand when you need consent. As we move through the rest of this lesson on consent, Use your graphic organizer to take notes about each of these different aspects of consent. To access this graphic organizer online, use the camera on your phone to scan this QR code, or visit this link to open it in Google Docs. Thanks for watching!